Hi, this is going to be a video showing the new functionality of Triangle 5, and that is the digitization of the P&ID for flow path generation and Delta V integration. Um, you can launch the tool, the new functionality, by going to Tools and CIV. When you do this, what will happen is pulls out the P&ID, which has been digitized. Oh well, you then digitize it from there. As you can see at the top left here are all the P&IDs, which is basically converted to a JPEG format. Now, digitizing the P&ID, it's actually pretty, can be very useful once it's done. As you know, the P&ID is basically serves as a master document that's referenced by various groups like process engineering, automation, trans- electrical, instrumentation, and so forth. And it serves as the sources of truth used by various groups. And once it's digitized, there are many things that's been used for. Process engineers will use it to, for example, generate flow paths for a process. The information is then passed on to groups like the automation group, which then use the flow path and so forth to generate the configuration as well as process phases um, from there. So for this function, for these new feature in the Triangle 5, where you can see I'll go there going to be series of videos that shows more and more details of what this feature does, functionality in the Triangle 5 tool does. And for this first demo, it's going to go generally the overall functionality. So as already mentioned, these are all your P&IDs. You can go to them and select the one that you want to look at by hitting get picture, and then you can scroll forward through the list. If you hit the limit, it'll tell you, and you could go the other way, so forth. That's this part of it. um, if we go, for example, for this example, maybe this one, you hit this play button. When doing this, you'll see all the equipments that are digitized. When you use the cursor and you hover on top of them, you can see the tag names, right? And then when you right click on the mouse, you get more information. In this case, you got valve, you got the PV. You can double click and enter description, save it, and onward and offward, and PV. And I'll go a little bit more detail on what these does in general sense. So you also have over here, which is analog out. For analog out, you can have high, low, limit, the mode, and I'll tell this what this text location is. Over here is an example of an analog in, and over here the analog control, based essentially a P&ID. Now for each one of these, once configured, you can set the high limit and whatnot in here. And to generally go over this is the text location. As you can see right now, it's at the bottom. You can change it to the left side. It'll show up here on the left. Unfortunately, to update it, you need to hit the picture, and then going forward, when you open up this P&ID, you can actually set the text location, which is can be important depending on how the P&ID is drawn, and you may want to show the text at a certain location. So to go further of this, and I'll go through all these buttons. The add EM, what that will do is that it will add the CM in this case to, you'll add the EM where this CM belongs to, and essentially you can create a list of EMs that you can operate from and then generate some sort of flow path. The find button here is basically once it's into you got your Delta V configured, you want to find this control module in Delta V, it'll find that for you. Details is right now it's a future functionality that's yet to be incorporated. It's basically to allow at the beginning of a project detailed information about this device or this CM. For example, you may want to give, if it's a charms, hopefully from that information you can generate IO list to be passed on to the automation group. What's envisioned for details is not only to populate information for configuration, but when, let's say, Delta V is configured, hitting the details can then pull information from Delta V how this CM is configured. So you can have side by side comparison. The save button is essentially when you change anything and you want to keep it, you save it, you would then save the file, which then every time when you load it up, it'll show you what the configuration is. You got PV. Now from here you can actually change the state. So for example, you right click here, when you double click on the PV, you'll open up the on and off state. You sit close and you can select open. You automatically save that and then update the valve state in this case. Over here you got analog out. You can change the configuration or you can change the PV. In this case, let's see, set it 0. Oh, sorry, set it 0. And I hit OK. For that to take effect, you had to hit save. So you then update here, or you can change the, let's say, the mode. Let's say auto, and you got to be aware that this mouse is within the frame. If you move out the frame, it will disappear, and you lose that value. So hit save and close. The way this is configured, anything above something like, forgot, 5% you'll show has open, and it will then turn red representing close. Anything above certain percentage you will then show has open. So right now, okay, save, there it is. That's the hover, and then to change the state. What you can also do to give an idea, I guess, how long does it take to generate all this, which include the ability to generate flow paths. It took about a week, but once you digitize a P&ID, you can do a lot, from IO generation to for the process engineer to use it for full path generation, which then can be passed on to Delta V, and you can use it to locate this where it is in Delta V, and actually vice versa. For Delta V, you can select CMs or EMs and then find the associated configuration on the P&ID. So everything opens up once you're able to digitize the P&ID and to use it for beginning of the process where you don't have Delta V configuration, to when Delta V is configured, you then can reference the P&ID you use it to see how delta V is configured and even generate flow path based on phases, however phase it's being configured. Um, so let me go through all the generally what these functionality does. So over here is a global search. Basically, when you right click on the search button, it displays all the tags that is configured in this project. So you can actually, let's see, select something like anything. You want to know where that valve is, you select it and you hit search. It takes you to the correct P&ID and indicate where it is on that P&ID. So that's generally what it does. Hitting this button basically uh, run the the updates the drawing and generate flow path. When you see a message like this, it basically said that this graphic is linked, has links to other graphics which is not right now linked, so you give you that message. And then once you click that, you'll just basically show current flow path. Now, and let's go back to this P&ID because it's the most complicated and feature rich example. So this is currently what it's drawn. You can reset it. Resets it basically set all the valves to its default state. So right now it's basically default, right? Uh, Clear the line, simple. If there are any lines, just clears it. In this case, there are no lines. This is a camera which is basically take a snapshot. Because this is a JPEG, maybe it's not ideal. It's not easy, especially when you have a large drawing like this. It's not easy to zoom in and zoom out. So to do that, you could generate a path and you could take a snapshot. And then from there, for let's say discussion purposes, you can zoom in, zoom out. It's a solution to give you the ability to zoom in and zoom out as well at will, but it is just a snapshot. Um, this is a print, basically prints to a PDF format. So within this tool, you have ability to draw a series of flow path, and that will show. I'll explain how that's done in later video. Once either you got series of flow path or even one, you can hit this and you'll generate a PDF for you, for example, which then you can distribute to various groups to look at. So let's do that. Let's TFF flow, save. Yes. So that one is, I believe it's created here. Right? So this is a PDF that it will generate and which can be distributed. And it's kind of nice to be able to do that and distribute flow paths or information you want rather than draw a P&ID and then and then and then distribute it, and then if there's any update, it's you then have to create a new one. So all this is digital. Once it's digitized, all files are live, and you can change it and modify it at will, and which makes a project which can change, modified when you want to change or modify it, it's much easier. So right now, to continue on, as you can see, every time you hover above equipment, it shows up the text. Sometimes you don't want that. And yes, you can change the state, the PV, but it can get pretty cumbersome if you want to quickly generate flow paths. And to do that, one of the things you would do is you disable pop-up. So once you do that, that's fine. And then you will hit toggle valve. So when you toggle valve, it's meant to quickly generate flow path, and I'll show that. These are a custom thing which I created. By double clicking on it, you show the tank is full. You could show the tank is empty, right? Tank full. So let's say tank is full and you want to circulate bypassing the membrane. You just double click, go through the pump, and you start this is one of the flow path that you may want, and back to the tank. So in theory, you could do that, and to show circulate, hit, do you can save this, which I'll show later, and then you can print it out in a PDF format and send it out. And this is what you want. Maybe you want to show a series of flow paths. You first drain, print that out, or capture that flow path, and then you circulate back. Or you could say the tank is empty, you want to add Wi-Fi to it. The way these are done is if disconnected, you double click on that, and then you double click your way through. This is a very easy and quick way to draw flow path, right? And the way this is configured, and the configuration is really easy, which I would not show. That's part internal. Once it's filled, the tank automatically shows up as green. And you can actually shut it off. Once it's full, you turn it off, and the tank, oh sorry, what happens there is, because I should have disabled it. So tank is full, you disable all these, and then you shut off the water, and the tank is full, and you can do anything you want from there. So what also is good is to show the differences. So let me reset, and this is useful when you have flow paths where you change the CMs to different states, and you don't know, because there's so many equipment there, what got changed. So what this does for cases like that, you select this, show all differences only. So you'll basically show the difference from current to the next one. So if you select this, it highlights it. When it's highlighted green, that means previously it was red, which is not running, and green. And right now you just go through all that, and you show you previous state to current state. And right now this one valve at a time, but if you change several at the same time, especially like EMs, it'll show you what all valves that were different from one flow path to the other. So that could be useful to decipher the differences between flow paths. This is a button which I will not show, which I will not go into detail. It basically shows up here. Remember before, when I select, I'll show that, add EM, what you'll do is you find the EM that this valve belongs to, and then add it to there. And this is the EM that controls this valve. I won't go into great detail, but other than to show, for example, show EM state table, and there it is. So that valve which we just selected, 162, is right there, and you showed where it is. And there are a lot more functionalities to this, but I'll go into it in greater detail in other videos. So that's what that button is for. Over here, these two are just, there's no functionality to it yet. They're basically trying there to declutter all the information that's showing on the graphics. Maybe you don't want to show a lot of these information here because it's too noisy. It helps it a little bit. FlowPath menu is extremely useful. Basically, allows you to capture a series of flow paths, saves it, and then print it out PDF format. The beauty of doing it this way is this is then a live document that you can change, modify, and update. Well, modify and improve on without the problems in the past is when flow paths are drawn on a sheet of paper. It's very time consuming, and when things change, most of the time people don't have the time to go back and update those flow paths. It just stays there and eventually not being used. With this, by capturing the flow paths, should it change, modified, or even for later projects where you want to add additional flow path, you can do that. It's a live process, and I'll go into detail about what that does. So so this generally shows the flow path. Another cool feature is I alluded for earlier, and I'll give a quick demo of it, is the ability to link one P&ID to the other. Um, One example of that would be, I believe it's this one. So this is basically a filtration system, and you can hit play. Yes, this tells you there's a link. Right, there's a link here, and there are links. This is an off-page connector. I won't link this graphic here, but I'll link this one where these are where the pods are. And to do that, there's a plus, and there's this button you select. These any groups of P&ID that shows up here will then be linked to one another. So let's add this graphic, right? And add the one that the pods that this is associated with. So if I add it, now these two are linked together. Now what does that mean? So even though you can go back and forth like before, right? So now let's create a flow path that flow from this P&ID to the next. So we can do this, and we can start go to flow path. Let's say it goes through here, here, and I don't know. Let's make it go through this pod. So it goes up here, up here. This is in to the pod. Let me open this up. Now, as you can see, this line automatically opens up. How does it do that? Or how does it know? Basically, it'll look at the other P&ID. Depending on how that's set up, it will update this drawing accordingly. So let's go back. So you notice that this goes out to basically a pod and comes back. It could also come back to the return or to drain, and I'll show examples of that. So let's go. When you double click on it, what you'll do is open up the P&ID. It highlights where that line is. So it's coming through here, and the way this is configured is coming back out, which then it updates the other drawing. So now, so if I change it such that it goes to CIP return, you close this up. So it's still coming in, and then you open the return to here. Now where is here? And you'll see that is actually this path here, right? And you notice that previously it comes back from return, but that path, when it goes back, analyze this P&ID, is actually now coming through here. Now let's change it such that it goes through one of the drain paths. So we go back here. It tells you it's this line. We don't want to go there. 58011. Yeah, so this is linked to also 58011. So it goes through here, right? And then when you go back here, it will show that it's coming through here. So this is what will happen, and this is actually a good example, which I'll show later on. You can have up to 8 P&IDs, basically a train, a maximum of up to 8 P&IDs that gets linked to one another. And then you could do a presentation or catch a series of flow path that goes from one vessel down the train all the way down. That's it for now. But stay tuned for additional videos coming up showing a bunch more functionalities within this feature in the tool. Thank you very much.